Week 10 in NFL Survivor featured more upsets, but those that went with the chalk play, Dallas survived. There's a lot of great games to choose from in Week 11, and we'll give you our advice coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Eric, we lost 9 people this week. Darn those Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. But let's give a little shout out to those that lasted this long. A little congratulations to Michelle, Tom, Thomas, Jerry, Damon, Johnny, Matt, Michael, and Eric.
Michael and Eric, not us. We weren't long enough. We didn't last as long, but what a great run. We still have 24, but I need to talk to Romel and Igor, who are both still alive. And boy, are they lucky, because I cracked the code, Michael. I know what happened. There was a Germany game this week, and they forgot to get their picks on time. So they were left to picking Monday night, and they already picked Buffalo. So they had to just throw their lot in on Denver. And can you believe the Denver Broncos came through for them and they survived?
Yeah, what a little bit of a roll of luck. I don't think they did that with confidence, but hey, they survived.
All right. So, hey, we got a comment in the comment section that I thought was really revealing. It said, hey, I'm a subscriber, but I'm not seeing your videos that regularly come up. And we want to alert you guys to the fact that sometimes YouTube does not appreciate us as a smaller channel. To maximize the chances that you will not miss our video uploads, it'll automatically appear in your feed, you've got to like the videos. It helps us, but it also helps you by making sure that you won't miss any of our videos. So if we could just ask you right now to remember to like the videos as a habit. And if you haven't yet, hit the red subscriber button. And if you want, hit the bell icon, which will notify you every time over email when we do release a video. All right, let's talk about Week 11. Wow, there are a lot of exciting games that would pique our interest. There are 8 we want to call your attention to, but we are in Week 11, and we realize that some of these teams are probably long since taken in your survivor selections. I want to break up this list of 8 games into 4 teams first that I think that is highly likely that you have already picked. That is Dallas, San Francisco, Miami, and Buffalo. Michael, let's start with Buffalo real quick. What is going on with last year's, not this year, last year, our Super Bowl pick, who didn't do well last year? They have fallen apart. I just have to say, if somehow you haven't picked Buffalo, I'd wait. I have no confidence in this week. They're facing the New York Jets, a team, the Jets already beat them earlier this year with Zach Wilson. They do have a juicy matchup in Week 17 against New England. I would hold off on Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree. They've been decimated by injuries. It's really impacted them. 12 men on the field didn't help yesterday. And then obviously just some bad decisions by Josh Allen. It seems like he's trying to put the team on his back and do too much. And, I don't think they needed to do that against Denver. I don't think they would need to do that against the Jets either. But kind of similar to what's going on in Denver. The Jets have a good defense, much better actually than Denver. Maybe not same quarterback play with Zach Wilson, but really a stronger all around team in my opinion. It's not Denver going across the country to Buffalo. So I agree. Like coming off Monday, Buffalo has to have this game, but I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to win this game.
And with a new offensive coordinator, they fired their offensive coordinator. So I like the point that Buffalo is going to be on short rest. Let's hold off. Let's look at the other 3. And look, I have confidence in Miami, San Francisco, and Dallas to win this week. But when you look at it from a future value, the team that stands out is Dallas. So if you still have Dallas available, and you decided not to take them last week. I think the time to pick Dallas for you would be this week. Do you have any concerns? Because I don't, with them playing at Carolina this week.
No, I don't. Not only is their defense, they had a pretty easy game, let's face it, but their defense continues to be solid, and their offense has been clicking the last couple of weeks as well. I think this is just another nice win for Dallas against the Carolina team that, frankly, just has not looked that impressive.
The only other game that they have that is that interesting is week 12. They host Washington, but a Washington team that has looked horrible and good at times. So I would say that would be my first pick. If you have Dallas, burn them this week. Any other comments? Because I don't really have any. Miami and San Francisco. Miami is facing your Las Vegas Raiders, who actually, new coach, all of a sudden seem to be turning it around. Any comments either about the Miami game against Las Vegas or San Francisco against Tampa Bay?
My only comment on the Las Vegas is, why are they trying to win? Can you just please tank for the rest of the season so that we can get up the draft board a little bit? I understand the coach wants to show that he can win the Raider way, but their defense looks pretty good. It's been surprising to see them look so good. But they still look pretty bad on the offensive side of the ball. Miami got a much needed break. They're coming out of the bye. It's going to be, in Miami. This game looks really nicely to be a Miami win. And, I think San Francisco should take care of business as well. Their defense looked phenomenal coming out of their break. But most of our viewers don't have either one of those teams available to them.
Right. So let's talk about some teams which I think is likely you do have available. So we've got Washington, 10-point favorites over the New York Giants. Detroit, 9.5-point favorites at home versus Chicago. And Jacksonville is 6.5-point favorites against Tennessee. And can you believe, look who made it on our board, the Houston Texans, 5.5-point favorites at home against Arizona. I'd like to start with this game. Michael, the NFL is all about timing. Life is all about timing. If this game would have been 2 weeks ago and the starting quarterback for Arizona would have been Clayton Tune and James Conner was still injured, I would say this would be my pick this week. But it's not. Kyler Murray is such a huge step up. And even though he was a little rusty with his arm, missing some throws, he looked great with his legs, creating lots of different opportunities. Having James Conner back again helps. It looks like Trey McBride is filled in perfectly for Zach Ertz at tight end. I'm a hard no on putting my survivor life on Houston this week. How about you?
Yeah, no, I understand this is a big tip of the cap for their nice win against the Bengals. 2 weeks in a row, this Houston offense has looked very, very good. CJ Stroud has impressed. Clear rookie of the year. Some people are talking about him as a potential MVP with how things are going. Their offense is really clicking. It's quite impressive. And the defense looked really good against the Bengals. They're hanging in there. Certainly the Arizona Cardinals are not anything close to where the Bengals are at. The Bengals looked pretty good coming into that game against Houston. But I'm with you. I think Houston should win this game, but it's still an unproven team. I think they're still vulnerable, not only on the defensive side of the ball, but, CJ Stroud can have a bad game. He has weapons, but Damian Pierce has been hurt. Singletary seemed to be just fine without him. I'm with you. I'm nervous putting my survivor life on the line. But if I didn't have anything else available, I wouldn't go down below these games to the next person on the list.
Should DeMeco Ryans be in line for Coach of the Year?
Yeah, obviously, yes. I think he certainly has done a lot with not just the draft, but with this young cast of characters.
All right. So again, we've got some other options here. Tell me, what are your thoughts about Jacksonville? They look like they are turning their season around, looking great, and then they just get absolutely destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers. against a Tennessee team that looks like it's going to continue to be led by Will Levis.
Yeah, no, I was expecting Jacksonville to at least give the Niners a game. I felt pretty good about the Niners. You know how I feel about the Niners. I felt pretty good that that bye came at a perfect time for them. The addition of Chase Young was huge. They're a formidable defense. And so Jacksonville just kind of ran into it, and kind of felt a little bit like early on the season with Jacksonville, where they just needed to kind of get going. And I don't know if that's what their problem is. I think this Tennessee team is not that good, and so I feel better about this Jacksonville game than I do about Houston. But man, it's just hard to think that something's not amiss with how they played against the Niners this last. That Niner game could have been 60-0.
So, wow, 60.
Where'd
you get that number?
A bit of an exaggeration.
But just dominated, just completely domination. How about Detroit, who there probably are no two people who have been higher on Detroit than you and me. From the beginning of the season, we've said this is a very good team, and they are proving how good they are. And they're at home, 9.5-point favorites against Chicago. Now, we'll talk about their future value in a second, but how do you feel about this particular game? Forget about future value, just to win this week relative to, say, Jacksonville.
Yeah, Detroit looks very good right now. They came off the bye, kind of similar to the Niners. They enjoyed the bye week. David Montgomery's now back, which is good. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a great game. Jared Goff just knows how to run this offense, and defensively, they can keep teams at bay. And so Chicago shouldn't be able to really do a whole lot, and certainly can't keep up with Detroit's offense. Their defense just isn't good enough to keep them down. So this game's in Detroit. They are further closer to the bye than the Bears are. I know Fields may be back this week. He was supposed to be back last week, but he's going to be rusty if he comes back. This, to me, is a nice, easy win for Detroit.
But I was going to bring that up. That does scare me with Justin Fields back. Remember that Chicago played last time on Thursday, so Chicago's coming off what we call a mini bye, and Justin Fields has had even more time between games to get right. Do I think Justin Fields is, here's what I think about Justin Fields. He has a huge high ceiling, which is always scary to bet against him because of what he could potentially do. We've seen him unlock DJ Moore in a way that Tyson Bagent wasn't able to. Very safe plays. So that does give me a little cause for concern here, but I do get it. I like Detroit. I especially like Detroit at home in the Dome. Probably my biggest concern about Detroit is their future value. They play Chicago again, but this time it will be at Chicago. And then they get to host Green Bay and Denver. So something to keep in mind. Any other final comments about this game before we?
No, just that that game will be, like you say, in Chicago, and Denver's been looking a little bit better. So, I hear what you're saying on the mini bye. I think Justin Fields is not going to come out sharp, having been out for a few weeks. So I feel pretty good about this game.
Okay, very good. And that's a really good point you say in looking at their future value. How big is it, right? Because maybe Denver's not a bad team. Green Bay is not a bad team. They're not a good team, but they're not a bad team. So no gimmies in their schedule. In fact, this is probably their best game of the ones remaining. Would you say that?
Yeah, that's what I think.
All right. So the last game to talk about is the Washington Commanders, are 10-point favorites over the New York Giants. Here we go again. I think I proclaimed on this very show, I will never pick Washington. You can't trust Washington. Jekyll and Hyde. Let's be clear. They have played well this year, even in some of their losses. They played Philadelphia tough twice. They really almost beat a really good team last week. Who were they playing? Oh yeah, Seattle, first place Seattle. So, but here's the thing. I don't trust Washington, but you know what I do? I do trust the ineptitude of the New York Giants. Now, I don't think this is controversial, but right now, they're the worst team in the NFL, especially with Arizona getting Kyler Murray back. If you just start right now, because their injuries are all serious. Daniel Jones isn't coming back. Tyrod Taylor's not coming back for a while. And Darren Waller's not coming back for a while. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in New York. I expected them to have much more of a defense. They've been atrocious on the defensive side of the ball. Some of that's been, because they're having to account for a tough offense. They just don't, there's not many defenses like the Jets that can, keep a bad offense in the game. So it's a little unfair to pick on the defense so much, but I expected their defense to have a little bit more influence over games, and they just haven't. And so when you're bad on both sides of the ball, kind of to mention, the injuries that you talked about. I mean, I've been watching this defensive backfield since early on. The best they can do is give pass interference. Like, they can't cover without holding. So I expect that Washington will be able to take advantage of that. It's funny. I agree with you. Like, Washington's a team you don't want to bet on, but if I had to pick a game to put in a parlay with a spread, I would think this is the easiest spread to cover of all the games. I mean, Washington's offense can score, so they should win. They really should win. I'd be surprised if they don't.
So my concern always with Washington is they just have such a terrible secondary. And since they traded away, basically giving up on this season, two outstanding defensive line guys with Chase Young and Marquez Sweat, that their secondary just completely can get exposed. The Seahawks offense has really struggled this year, and Geno Smith has struggled. But look how good they looked last week. I mean, partially because of the run after the catch. I mean, they can't tackle, they can't cover. It's just a sad case for this Commander defense. But who on the Giants is going to make them pay? Seahawks have weapons. As much as they struggled, we know how much weapons they have in the offense. DeVito?
They got Saquon. They got Barkley.
Okay, but I'm talking about in the air. I guess screen passes to Barkley, right?
They've been trying and it hasn't worked out.
They cannot throw the ball downfield. And they don't have, I mean, we knew going into the season that this Giant wide receiving core was bad already. And now give it to a guy who is not a very good passer, especially downfield. I mean, everything was short against that Dallas Cowboy team. Take a look at Washington's remaining schedule. This is the game, folks. They have very little future value.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, now it's possible, Michael, they pick Washington in week 1 when they faced Arizona. But other than that, I doubt anyone who's alive has picked Washington this year, right? So I think a lot of people have this Washington pick. Some people have this Detroit pick. So let me put you on the spot. Considering everything, would your advice, if you have both Detroit and Washington, let's be clear, Detroit has more future value, but we just debunked the fact that there isn't that great a future value. Would you pick Detroit, or would you pick Washington, or maybe I missed something, or pick another pick? This is assuming that the top, or maybe even if you did have one of the top 4, those teams, where would you go? What would be your first pick if everybody was available?
I think if everyone, other than the few top ones that we already mentioned and that we would save even for future value, were available, I would go with Detroit over Washington because of my confidence in them being a good team playing against a bad team. Yes, Chicago's not as bad as New York, but Detroit is much more consistent than Washington. So that would be why you pointed out some really interesting things about the defense. Washington's defense should be scoreable on. Not that New York's going to find a way to do that.
And because of the lack of future value that Dallas has, they would be my first pick, and it sounds like that would be yours too.
Yes.
They only have one key game. But even if you had San Francisco, because San Francisco, week 14, 15, 17, 18 are all really good games. Miami has 4 good games. My personal pick would be Washington or Detroit second. And guess what, Michael? How about a little bit of a disagreement? But I would go with Washington because likely you've already used a lot of picks, and to be able to have Detroit as an option down the stretch, to me, the confidence level, I'm more afraid of Justin Fields than you are. And I'm a little bit more confident of the ineptitude of the New York Giants. So I think I'm almost as equally confident of Washington and Detroit winning this week, but Washington has no future value. So yeah. I lean on what, but I get it, Michael. Some people could be saying, I don't trust Washington. I don't trust Washington. And you might as well just go with Detroit, because as Michael says, Detroit does, it's not like Detroit has a ton of future value. I'd like to have a final comment about something that I've constantly argued with on this show in my head and with people on the comment section about how much should you consider future value. And I just completely disagree with anyone who says don't consider future value. Just whatever happens this week. You got to survive into the next week, then worry about the future weeks in future weeks. That's a mistake. However, thinking about it during this year, to me, you can easily overestimate future value. And I think you should really question looking too far out 3 or 4 weeks, in my opinion. I'm looking, because things change all the time. What happened with me, I'm regretting I picked Washington earlier because I basically thought they had no future value. Instead of going with Detroit, who I wanted to that particular week, I would have told you Detroit had the higher point of winning. But I was worried about this week, which was about 5 weeks, 6 weeks in advance. Here's the bottom line. Washington didn't change. In fact, maybe they even got worse because they traded 2 good players away. What changed is this New York Giant team, who I thought was a good team, turns out to be horrible. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Eric. I'm agreeing with you. I mean, for one, I definitely agree with the ineptitude of the New York Giants. No question there.
Ultimately, it's a balancing act, right? Between these different.
I think that's right. The future value, as you get later on in the season, obviously, becomes even less important unless there's just a week that you feel, really bad about. And, that's really how I would look at the survivor grid or something like that and see, hey, is there just not a pick I can get comfortable with that week?
All right. Till we see you guys for week 12. Wow. Thanksgiving week. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
We'll put 2 videos on the screen we think you'll enjoy.